Good day and welcome. Today we have with us Kimiko Como, Director, Business Advisory and Transition and Planning from BMO Private Wealth. Kim joined BMO in 2018, and prior to that, she spent 11 years doing corporate finance work at a Big Four accounting firm. She is a CFA charter holder, a family enterprise advisor designate, and what she does is she helps high net worth and ultra high net worth families as they plan for and execute business transition events over their life. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Kim, so our first question today is, who are your typical clients and what are their typical concerns?
That's a good question, and I work all day, every day with business owners. Typically they're owner-operators, they're heavily involved in their business, and they've built this business from either inception or they've sort of grown it over time after acquiring it. And these are business owners who are generally in their 50s and 60s, not to say that someone in their 30s, I've talked to someone in their 30s who was looking to exit from their business.
Right.
Likewise, someone in their 80s. But generally speaking, clients are concerned about this business transition. How does this process work? How long does it take? How do they get ready for it? How does it unfold? What does it actually look like to go through a business transition event, whether it's sale to a third party, intergenerational transfer, or even a sale to employees or management?
So what does this process look like for our clients that engage with your services?
Yeah, well, we've got this great team at BMO of holistic subject matter experts. So we've got tax experts, estate, insurance, wealth planning, and we can look at this client situation from all angles to get a really clear understanding of their goals and their needs. And once we've done that, we can sort of look from the different lenses and say, what makes sense for this client? What is the client hoping to accomplish? And how can we help them establish short, medium, and long-term goals, both personally from their own personal financial situation, as well as for their business?
So that was a lot that you just covered there as to what you can do. What would be one of the biggest benefits that a client would receive from engaging your services?
I work all day, every day with business owner clients and have done at BMO for 5.5 years and did before at in my previous role. And so I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of what can go right, what can go wrong,
yes,
and how do we navigate this really complex process. And so hopefully by sharing those experiences with clients, I can give them insight and ensure that they have a successful transition. Ultimately, that's what we want for clients, is for them to be able to achieve their goals. We can talk through, how does this process look? What do you specifically need to do? And how does it look and how long does it take? And really give them those details.
So, being a business owner myself, the one thing that I always worry about is when I'm ready to retire, I have this whole team of great people behind me, and they looked after me and they looked after our clients. I want to make sure that nothing gets disrupted for them. What can you share with us that will help business owners have that same comfort level when they're ready to actually transition away?
Absolutely, and business owners often have a really strong relationship with their key employees. These are individuals who are like family, who have helped grow this business to where it is today. And very often the business would be in trouble without these individuals.
Very much
and buyers understand that. Everyone thinks that buyers are going to come in and fire everyone. That is generally not the case. They generally want the business to continue operating as it has, because it has successfully done so for a period of time. And so mostly employment agreements with those key employees are going to be part of those legal agreements that are drawn up with the purchase and sale agreement. Those new buyers really want to have an understanding that these individuals are going to be there and will stick around, particularly in a time like now where skilled labor is so hard to find, and those individuals are a really key value driver in the business.
So my next question has to do with, of course, what family considerations do business owners need to keep in mind as they transition to the next phase of their life?
Absolutely, and business owners, this whole business transition process is complicated, and a lot of details are involved. And then we layer on family dynamics and the complexity that comes along with family. And when we've got those layered on top of each other, we really need to understand how connected they are, because we know that, envision a business owner who's got children working in the business. Any conflict or challenge in the business is going to end up at the family dinner table.
Absolutely.
Likewise, challenges, sibling disagreements, if those are happening in the family, those are going to come and affect the business. So we really need to kind of understand that complexity and realize that it's even more amplified when we've got some children in the business and some children who aren't, because they do feel excluded from that sort of the social dynamic, as well as, considering the fairness of a transition where the next generation is sort of inheriting this business, and then you've got individuals who aren't. So from a financial fairness and estate planning perspective, you need to consider that as well. The other thing that I would say is that it's really a need of balancing the founder's need for liquidity and a comfortable retirement. They've built this business over time, they've built significant value, and they should be able to live a comfortable retirement. And so to have some sort of liquidity event would be something that we would hope for them. On the other side, very often that next generation doesn't have a lot of capital. So how are they going to pay their parents for this business without being sort of paralyzed by debt? And so it's really a need to balance those two factors. And usually mom and dad want the children to take some responsibility, to take some engagement rather than just owing to the bank of mom and dad. Maybe it is helpful for them to have some bank debt or something owing to someone else for that level of engagement. But it really is kind of considering both sides and balancing that.
Now, the one question that a lot of folks would like to know, of course, is what is my business worth? So at the end of the day, what are some of the analytical steps that you take a client through to help them decide or help them actually figure out what is my business worth when I go to sell it?
Yes. And there's really two factors. There's the normalized EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. And that's really cash flow. What is this business generating? If we weren't paying, Aunt Peggy an extra 50 grand to deliver something, if this family didn't own this business, what would it generate? If we weren't paying for gas cards for the teenage children, etc., how do we strip that down and really look at what that business is generating and what it has generated, what it is generating, and what we expect to do going forward? So that maintainable EBITDA number is really important. Okay. And then on the other side is the multiple. And that's really what we multiply that cash flow by to establish the enterprise value. And everyone knows someone who sold for 10 times EBITDA. Well, I think sometimes it can be deceptive because we need to really dig into those numbers to understand what they mean. But generally speaking, that multiple is, there are some parts of it that we can control. Okay. We can establish a business that is operating well, that has great procedures in place, that has a strong team. So those are some business factors. And then there are some sort of general economic factors that play into the multiple. There are market factors as well, and industry factors. There are particular industries that command a higher multiple, and that's just how it is. And so it's really a matter of, it's a little bit art, a little bit science, sort of establishing what that multiple is potentially for this business and establishing what the cash flow is.
I like that. So you talked about art and science. That's a great way to frame the next question. And that is, why is it important to consider life after the sale of the business? So I guess this would be the arty side.
Right. And I think there's the business considerations to that, where, we look at that transition period. And if a buyer comes into a business and the owner is disappearing into the sunset the moment the papers are signed, that buyer's going to feel a bit nervous. Right. And so to give some comfort, often I recommend to sellers that they have a transition period for this business, that they can be around, they can answer questions, there can be a transfer of knowledge. And so that would be the business side, that sort of transition. How long are you going to stick around? What sort of things will you do? Hopefully most of that transition of that work is done before, but ensuring that you can be there to answer questions. And that's really one of those levers that you can pull during negotiation. Excellent. On the personal side, it's, business owners are very intertwined. Their identity is very intertwined with their business. Mm-hmm. And so what are you going to do with all your free time? How are you going to spend your time? And how do you make sure you have kind of a fulsome life after the business is no longer part of it?
Last question. Why should business owners leverage our BMO partners when they plan to sell their businesses?
Great question. I think I'll illustrate that with an example, if you don't mind. So we had, this matriarch of a family and her daughter. They were basically fire sailing a construction business.
Oh, no.
The patriarch had passed away suddenly. There were no plans in place. He was very integral to the business operations, and sort of as they're trying to sell it, revenues are sort of declining, and this business is really in crisis. And I compare that to a client we worked with where they came to us, we talked about their 5-year plan to exit from their business. We did some tax planning. We had some conversations about changes they could make within the business to really maximize value down the road. And not 2 years later, they came back to us and said, we actually got an offer from our competitor. And we had planned to exit in 5 years.
Yes.
We got this offer. It's really attractive, and I think the time is right, and we're going to do it. And because they were ready for that, they were able to take advantage of this opportunistic offer and sort of accelerate their timeline, but they had those plans in place. And I think at BMO, really, we're encouraging our clients to undertake these plans. And it's the same reason why a lot of clients don't have wills. A lot of clients don't want to plan for the transition of their business,
right.
but we encourage them to do that and hopefully arm them with some information to do that well.
Excellent. Reminds me of a saying that we used to use, and we still use actually, and it's plan to fail, or fail to plan, plan to fail. And it's one of those things where I think you're absolutely right, is that have planning and have some knowledge of ahead of the game of understanding what you want to achieve when it's all said and done.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kim, for joining us today, and we appreciate the time you spent with us.
Thanks, Hudson.
Thank you.